Hey folks, so today I'd like to share how I use Stripe to process payments for restaurant pickup orders. In general, it works like this. So after the customer selects their items, they go checkout, send them to Stripe's checkout page. If the customer clicks back, it will send them back to the shopping cart. If they go through with the order, they are sent to the success page on my site, and that's how I know that the transaction is complete. So since I have my payment information saved, I can just click pay. In this video, we'll focus on the integration points and not worry about how the shopping cart works or any of the other user interfaces. We'll see how little PHP code it takes to use Stripe as a payment processor. All right, so I have Visual Studio Code open and it's pointing to a empty folder. The first thing that we need is to get the Stripe software development kit. There's a couple ways to install this. You can install it using Composer, but for simplicity, I'm just going to do the manual install. I'll download the latest version, the zip file here, and then I will unzip it into my Visual Studio Code folder. Okay, so I have the Stripe folder unzipped here. The next thing that we need is the shopping cart page, but I'm going to strip it down all the way to basically just the checkout button. We'll create a new file for the cart page. Okay, so like I said, all I want is the checkout button and a page that's going to prepare the data to pass to Stripe. Here's what the page looks like, and it's just a checkout button. Now I'll create the checkout.php page. We need to include the Stripe library. So I'm pointing to the Stripe init file. Next, we'll create the Stripe object. So in order to create the Stripe object, it requires a API key. So we can grab this from stripe.com. I'm logged into my Stripe dashboard. Test mode is on, so everything on this page is test data. I'm going to click on the developer button and then API keys. For server-side processing with PHP, the key that we need is the secret key. So we'll grab this one. If you're using JavaScript, you would grab the publishable key. So we want to put the key inside a config file. And I'm just going to define a constant like this. Bring the key back. Now I have my Stripe object. Now we need to prepare the shopping cart data to send over to Stripe. The way that you would store your shopping cart data may be different from mine. So for simplicity, I'm just going to hard code a couple of line items to send over to Stripe. So my first item looks like this. Currency is US dollars. Product name, sending over fried rice. And then the unit amount is how much it costs. Costs $9.99. Stripe expects everything in cents, so we need to multiply by 100. And then we are buying one of these items. The structure of this stuff is all in the Stripe documentation, and I'll put a link in the description. Okay, so for now, we'll just try to check out with one item. Before I send the user over to Stripe, I need to create a Stripe checkout session. The session creation function expects an array of parameters. It expects the list of line items, what we are actually trying to buy. The mode is payment, or we are trying to accept payment. And then what happens upon success, and if the user wants to go back to the shopping cart. Upon payment success, Stripe will send the user back to my checkout success page. Now, when Stripe sends the user back, the way that I can identify the checkout session is by using the session ID. Adding this checkout session ID to the query string, Stripe will fill in the session ID and send it back to me. If the user wants to go back to the shopping cart before completing the payment, we'll just send them back to the shopping cart. With the checkout session created, we should get the session ID and store it into the database. So the way to get the session ID is to call the session object and reference the ID. At this point, this is where I would save the session ID into the database. But for the purpose of this demo, I will just skip that part. And now we are ready to send the user over to Stripe. So we use the header functions and send the user over to the URL that the checkout session created. And then we will exit this page just to make sure that we're not doing any more processing below this line. After adding the Stripe secret key, I need to include the config file here. We're ready to try out the checkout button. All right, we got our FireWise here, and this is where the customer enters their payment information. Since we don't have the success page yet, I'm not going to try this yet, but we can try to go back. So this sends the user back to the shopping cart. We'll go ahead and create the checkout success page. So here, if I don't see a checkout session ID, I'm just going to kill the page. If the checkout session ID does exist, at this point, I should use the ID to look up the order in the database and then send the user email confirmation. For the demo, we'll just say order is successful. Now we can try checking out and completing the payment. Stripe provides a test credit card number, and then you can enter any future date and any security code. There we go. We are at the success page and we have the session ID that we can use to look up the order in the database. So as you can see, it really doesn't take much code to integrate with Stripe. Really the key stuff is just right here. Now we'll move on to everybody's favorite topic, taxes. Now if you need to collect taxes from different states, different cities, or whatever, offers a paid product to take care of all that for you. For me, we only have one location, so one tax rate. So we are going to use this free feature for calculating taxes. Back at the Stripe dashboard, I need to enter the tax rate. So I've already created an entry here for the California sales tax in my area. It's 10.75. To create a new entry, I would just click on here and then select sales tax, California, and type the amount here. And then inclusive or exclusive. So exclusive means that the dollar amount that I'm going to send over to Stripe does not include tax. So I'm going to have Stripe calculate the tax for me at the Stripe checkout page. Inclusive means the dollar amount that I send over to Stripe already includes the taxes. So for me, I just want to send over to Stripe how much the dish line item costs, and then have Stripe calculate the tax for me. And then I'll click on add. Since I've already created one, I'm just going to grab the tax rate ID from here. Then we'll add it to our config file. So now back at our checkout page, we need to add the tax rate to my FireWise item. So I'll add it right under the quantity. And notice that the tax rate is passed in as an array. If you have multiple tax rates, say you serve maybe a couple of cities, it is possible for Stripe to help you calculate that automatically. One more thing I need to specify is the tax behavior. So even though our tax rate is configured to be exclusive, I still like to add it here just to be double sure. So again, what this does is it tells Stripe that the amount $9.99 that I'm passing over does not include tax. So calculate tax for me. Let's see what our Stripe payment page looks like now. So as you can see, Stripe calculated the sales tax for us. I may add one more item to see what it looks like. So I'm going to copy the fried rice. I'll just change it to fried noodle. This is going to be $10.99. And I will order 2 of these. Check out. Here's my fried noodle at $10.99 each. And here's the taxes for overall. I'm going to add one more thing that doesn't include tax. Tips are not taxed, so I'll send $5 tips over. Let's see what it looks like. Now on this page, Stripe doesn't really distinguish whether this is taxed or not. If you do the math, the sales tax $3.43 is actually based on the fried rice and the fried noodle. Alright folks, that is it for this video. If you have any questions, leave me a comment. If you learned something today, please give me a thumbs up. If you're interested in more topics like this, please subscribe.